This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Delays are reported on the M60 anti-clockwise between Junction 4 and Junction 1 due to congestion. Drivers can expect delays of around 20 minutes. Motorists on the A92 heading northbound at Chapel should allow extra travel time due to a broken down vehicle. In Essex, on the M11 northbound between Junction 6 and Junction 7, expect significant delays because of a traffic collision, with one lane out of 3 closed. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Carlisle and Glasgow Central and Edinburgh. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Who is he? What's he doing there?
They already know who you are, though.
Don't miss this special reunion. Eamon and Anne together again, only on GB News Breakfast this weekend from 6 a.m.
And is that a gardening tan?
No, it's a cypress tan.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Jubes and Co. Coming up tonight, the red carpet is out. A 3-day state visit for the French leader, Macron. Many marvelling at the spectacle and praising its soft power. But I don't. Do you? And get this, Donald Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Benjamin Netanyahu. Your thoughts on that? And yes, they cry. Who am I talking about? The BMA, when announcing the fact that more doctor strikes are likely on the way. Do you back the doctors on this one? And we know criminal justice in the UK is at risk of collapse. Sentencing bill is due this week, and it looks like we'll be seeing an increase in out-of-court resolutions and a scaling back of jury trials. And oh yeah, we probably won't be able to mandate chemical castration of paedophiles in case they sue us. Are we going in the right direction when it comes to justice in this country? We've got all of that and lots more alongside me. My panel tonight, Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer and former MEP, and Matt Larser, the former Labour advisor. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and a very good evening to you. Just after 6 o'clock, the top story. Emmanuel Macron has delivered a landmark address to both Houses of Parliament, calling for renewed French-British unity to protect global order. Speaking in the Royal Gallery, the French president praised the brotherhood of arms that has defined the nation's shared history and declared Europeans will never abandon Ukraine. He urged the UK and France to shout order to the world and said the fight for a Ukraine ceasefire must continue to the very last minute. Well, at tonight's state banquet, the King is expected to say that both nations face complex threats, but will meet them as friends and allies. And as French President Emmanuel Macron has set the week off with that state visit, wildfires have broken out in the south of France, with Marseille airport closed. Around 200 firefighters, backed by helicopters and fire engines, are battling the blaze. Residents have been told to stay indoors and keep streets clear for emergency crews. No casualties have been reported so far, but flights have been diverted to other airports. Breaking tonight, Greg Wallace has been sacked as presenter of MasterChef after an independent inquiry into allegations of serious misconduct. The decision comes as 50 new claims emerge, including accusations that Wallace groped colleagues and exposed himself to junior staff. He denies those allegations. In a statement, Wallace says he's been cleared of the most serious claims, but admitted some past comments and behaviour had been inappropriate. Grace Dent and John Turode will front the next series of Celebrity MasterChef. The Horizon IT scandal has had disastrous consequences for sub-postmasters and may have contributed to at least 13 people taking their own life, according to the findings of a major public inquiry. The report concluded that post office bosses maintained the fiction that the Horizon software was always accurate. It found victims and their families should now be eligible for compensation. The Post Office has issued an unreserved apology, calling it a shameful period in its history. Chairman of the inquiry, Sir Wyn Williams, has summarised his findings.
As I have said once already, but I repeat, the picture which has emerged and which is described in my report is profoundly disturbing. In summary, what does that picture reveal? Many thousands of people have suffered serious financial detriment, and for a sizable proportion, that detriment subsists. Many people have inevitably suffered emotional turmoil and significant stress in consequence.
Junior doctors in England have voted in favour of taking strike action over a pay dispute that's according to the British Medical Association. Resident doctors, otherwise known as junior doctors, are seeking a 29% pay rise. There are fears, though, the industrial action will now cause prolonged disruption in the NHS, with walkouts potentially lasting until January next year. In Italy, a man has died after being sucked into a plane engine in a shocking incident on the runway in Milan. Italian police say the 35-year-old, who was not a passenger or airport employee, drove the wrong way into the terminal before running onto the tarmac and into the engine of an aircraft preparing for takeoff. Witnesses report security tried to stop him but couldn't reach him in time. Operations were temporarily halted but have since resumed as police continue their investigation. And Lord Tebbit, one of the most influential Conservative politicians of the Thatcher era, has died at the age of 94. He entered Parliament in 1970, serving as party chairman and held several senior cabinet roles. Downing Street says he was a major figure in British politics who will be missed by many. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch has paid tribute to the late politician.
The Conservative family is mourning Lord Tebbit's loss. He was an icon. We respected him for so many reasons. The battles he fought during the Thatcher government, but probably the most inspiring thing was watching the aftermath of the 1984 Brighton bomb and how he responded to a terrorist attack from the IRA. Just staying stoic, staying brave, showing lots of courage, but most importantly, looking after his wife, who was severely disabled from that terrorist attack. He put family first. He always exemplified personal responsibility. He was the embodiment of what a Conservative should be, and we're going to miss him very much.
That's the news on GB News. I'll be back at 7 o'clock. Plenty more still to come with Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Sam. Hello and good evening to each and every single one of you. I am Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes and Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. So alongside me, I've got my panel. I've got Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer and former MEP, and Matt Lauser, the former Labour advisor. Good evening to you both. You're very welcome tonight. Jacqueline, that final story there, the sad passing of Lord Tebbit, I imagine that you must have known him
I did, and when I first came in and joined the party and became active in the late 80s, he was still key. A phenomenal politician, obviously one of Margaret's favourites, lieutenants, and paid the ultimate price, really, being involved in the Brighton bombing. And this is why I think a lot of us still remember the consequences of terrorism.
Yeah.
He helped me in the East End seat I fought in 1992, came canvassing, so, and we both actually had a background in the airline industry, British Airways.
Oh, well, very sad news, of course, and our thoughts are with his loved ones. You can join the conversation tonight in all the usual ways, ladies and gents. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or, of course, you can tweet or you can X me. We've got lots to discuss tonight, ladies and gents. I'm looking forward to discussing law and order with you. It's one of my favourite topics, as is the castration of paedophiles. Love talking about that. Turns out we might be getting a little bit soft, though, after all. We'll talk about that sentencing bill. But before we get to that, let's cross to our political editor, Christopher Hurt, because it's been a big day today. Christopher, we've had the French President, Macron, here in London. Tell us more.
That's right, Michelle, and yeah, welcome to you. Well, thank you for having me on your show. Yeah, he's been here. Emmanuel Macron moments ago spoke to both MPs and peers. For me, taking a step back on what was a 40-minute speech, you have there the French president almost challenging the UK to choose where our allies on the world stage. Are they in the European Union, our closest neighbour, or is it across the Atlantic to America, where there's talk about tariffs, how that goes against where the national interests and where the two countries need to be. He ranged across defence, climate change, migration, economy. On migration, he said there how there are shared efforts to try and tackle migration. So far, of course, we've seen very little of that, but I think he's throwing forward into Thursday this week, which is a big day on the politics of this relationship. Big announcements probably on the defence plans between the two countries, and also on migration, how to tackle and deal with those small boats crossings, and maybe this fabled one in, one out deal. Again, it won't bring numbers down, but it will mean that if you arrive here illegally, you could be taken back to France and swap for someone who can come here. So it's trying to reduce the pull factors, as Mr. Macron said there, and also some challenges there, I think, going forward. Recognise Palestine was what the French president said. Well, will Keir Starmer do that? Certainly those on the left of Labour want him to. That's unlikely, but we'll see how that one plays out. And also, I thought, remarks about freedom of movement, about students, intellectuals. He said he feared that the younger people in our country might become strangers going forward. That clearly is an attempt at trying to move the UK towards accepting 18 to 30-year-old freedom of movement. There's movements agreed in the Lancaster House Agreement. Nothing is signed yet, and clearly France is very keen on that idea. And just towards the end, I think, Emmanuel Macron, he summoned up what unites the two countries so much going back to the Second World War. And before that, he said, we will meet again. For years and for decades, he said, we're linked by our common future. That term, we'll meet again, of course, uttered by our late Queen when she tried to instill some spine, some backbone into Britain during the COVID pandemic. And, of course, quoting Vera Lynn, of course, during the Second World War. So we'll walk together, shoulder to shoulder. I think quite an interesting speech, ranging across many, many areas, I thought. It went down very well amongst the parliamentarians here in Westminster.
Yeah, I heard the round of applause. There's been a lot of eyebrows raised, Christopher, about the King. He will be giving a speech, and this notion about borders that he will be referencing. Tell us more.
That's right. So he's speaking tonight in Windsor around 8 p.m. at our King. Was briefed overnight, made the front pages in some quarters in Fleet Street, and he said that we want to look across the channel and don't see borders. Now, that, of course, is open to interpretation, because some would say what we do need is a border to try and keep these small boats out. The small boats issue, of course, regularly topping or near topping the concerns of voters. Number 10 today won't tell us if the PM agrees with the King, won't say if Number 10 signed off on that speech, although normally they would sign off on that speech, but they won't admit that or say that today. So instead we're left with interpreting what the King is saying. The King, of course, is known as someone who has made various, I would say, moves in the past to indicate he's quite keen on getting closer to the European Union. He put on a tie with Greek flags on at the height of a row over the Elgin marbles. he's reported to have renamed a warship from a French battle to a Greek god. So I think around the edges, we think the King sees the bigger picture and wants to move away from the politics which has divided the UK from Europe and from France in recent years. But again, the King hasn't got any special advisors. Cameron does very well interpreting what it means on our channel, but in terms of the politics, we're told that was the King's speech.
Interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Christopher Herp, for that. Sometimes, ladies and gents, I feel like I live on a completely different planet to our political elite and the rest of them, because I sit there watching all of this stuff unfold, and I think you've got a bit of a cheek, really, throwing this massive state visit. I dread to think the cost of all of this stuff, with all your kind of pomp and ceremony and all the rest of it, when simultaneously, I mean, the Daily Mail, actually, the Daily Mail's front page, I feel like they actually summed it up pretty harshly, but in a way that would connect, should I say, with many of my viewers, because they were basically saying, we've given you over £700 million and you've done absolutely pretty much diddly squat with it. I think it's pretty insulting, really. Anyway, Jacqueline Foster, your thoughts on all this?
Well, first of all, I always welcome a state visit. I mean, soft power is extremely important, so I have no issue with that. It's not about the individual particularly. But I think where I would agree with you, and I'm not going to comment on what the King may or may not say, is that, of course, you've got to remember that it's the government that invites the person or the country for a state visit. It's not actually the King himself. The King then, obviously, is very, very much involved in it. But in terms of comments about borders or whatever it may be, and the government, for example, I mean, frankly, it's just quite astonishing. You're quite right. You know, we spent £770 million giving the French authorities, you know, substantial finances to stop this. But there is no will. I mean, we had a good little BBC set-up the other day where some police officers arrived on a beach and managed to sort of slash this dinghy. I saw that. You know, when were the BBC last there? And what you have seen is frankly, this is now out of control. Them abolishing, actually, the Rwanda plan before it had actually kicked in, it was ready to go, was one of the most ridiculous things.
I'll always blame that on you guys, Jacqueline, because all the Tories talk about, oh, Labour scrapped Rwanda. Well, if Rwanda was so good, and we've said this before, Rishi Sunak shouldn't have called the general election then before a plane.
I don't disagree with you on the timing, but at the end of the day, it was probably more than Rwanda that made the decision. Most of us would have preferred an election later that year. We can't turn the clocks back. But that did not mean to say that when the Labour government came in, that they should have actually, you know, got rid of the Rwanda plan, because it was actually a deterrent, and we started to see some results on that. I mean, I think my final point is, you know, we have a love-hate relationship with the French. We love to hate each other. But I think there is also underlying a great admiration on a lot of things that we do and in our history as well.
Well, they certainly love our money, don't they? £700-odd million. I wonder, in business, you know, in the private sector, if you was throwing around £700 million odd, there'd be conditions attached to that. There'd be outcomes, there'd be measurables and all the rest of it, and there'd be accountability. I really wonder what happens to all of that stuff when it comes to public sector spending. But anyway, Matt Lance.
Well, no, I think that's a really good question, because we have been throwing money at the French on this problem, and I don't mind a state visit if there's actual real business behind it. There is actually, when the flummery is done over the next 24, 36 hours, there is a political summit, i.e. talks between Macron and Starmer, which are trying to get this new migration deal done, because the situation can't carry on. We can't keep paying money to the French, and the French just literally standing by as boats go. As Jackie said, we saw one example of a boat being stopped because the French police officers were allowed to get their feet wet this week. I'm going to be a little bit less cynical and hope that it's the beginning of a trend, because it needs to be, because, I mean, frankly, the previous government signed up a deal to give hundreds of millions to the French each year. The Labour government's carried on trying to negotiate it around the sides. A little bit of renegotiating around the sides isn't enough. We need to be getting, you know, value for our euro, not only bang for our buck.
I just think it's odd. I think who leads these deals? Because you should have been pulling levers like you're fishing. That should have been a core lever that you were pulling in your negotiation. But no, of course, that deal got extended for goodness knows how many years. I just found it all very, very odd. And this whole one-on-one, one-for-one migration plan, many of my viewers, Matt Larser, will be shouting at the screens going, well, what are you thinking? Because the viewers' concerns at home, it's not necessarily about the risk that grown adults choose to put themselves in by crossing the channel. That's not people's primary concerns. It is the volume, the pace, and all the rest of it. And simply just doing a one-for-one, that doesn't address any of those issues.
I can understand why people feel like that about the concept of a one-for-one sort. The key thing with the one-for-one, the concept is that people who have crossed illegally across the channel will be sent back to France, where France will then send them back under the EU rules to the country where they first entered the EU, and in return will take somebody who has a legitimate claim to asylum. The thing you might say, well, what difference does that make, apart from the fact, obviously, they would be people who have a legitimate claim, as has been proved. The key thing is, at the moment, when people come here and get stuck, as we know, in hotels, it's because there are a whole list of countries that even when they're turned down, we can't send them back to, and it would be that those people, you'd effectively be getting rid of the people who you couldn't say you can't send back at the moment from that list of countries that you can't send back. So ultimately, and it would, I think, therefore act as a deterrent. That is the theory.
No.
Well, Jacqueline says it's absolute nonsense. That's her reaction to that one-on-one proposal. What's your reaction to it? And at what point, by the way, do we stop calling these things small birds? They're not small birds. When you say small bird, you imagine, I don't know, some rubber dinghy with like 2 people on them or something like that. The whole thing is so bad. It's so infuriating. It's so divisive and all the rest of it. And don't even talk to me about when people who live these kind of shielded lives, protected from all of the ills of society. Why is it always those people that are basically saying, oh yeah, well, you know, we don't need really borders, or pack it in. Go and get into one of these communities that have been radically and drastically changed in the blink of an eye, and then talk about borders and solutions and all the rest of it. I'd love to have be a fly on the wall if that ever happened, but I suggest it won't. Anyway, look, we've got lots to talk about. Netanyahu has nominated Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. What do you think to that? And I want to talk about law and order in this country, or lack of it, quite frankly. See you in 2.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You live coverage of the July 12th celebrations
right across the United Kingdom. It's all happening here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Jubes and Co. Michelle Dewberry, Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Matthew Larser with you till 7. Let's cut to the chase. Donald Trump, should he be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? I'll play you a clip from one man who says yes.
I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved.
Well, there you go. That was Benjamin Netanyahu there. Why are you laughing, Matt Larser?
I mean, it's slightly beyond parody, isn't it? I mean, Netanyahu, of all people, handing over the Peace Prize. Look, I mean, I'm a massive supporter of Israel and Israel's right to exist. I don't think neither Netanyahu or Trump are doing the best thing to bring about peace in a very troubled region at the moment. And also, I mean, it's just, we talked about the state visit of Macron. Of course, do you remember when Keir Starmer went with his envelope? He took a state visit. Netanyahu's taken the nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. What's the next world leader got to come up with in that envelope? So that was kind of making me laugh, thinking, what's somebody going to offer next, you know?
Jacqueline, your thoughts?
Oh, well, I completely disagree, because I think that President Trump had a very good record when he was last in office, and I think he's been key since he's been in office for a very short time to actually trying to get this agenda moved on. I mean, we're not there yet, and it's obviously in peaks and troughs. Where I have a concern, really, is the negotiators, really, in Qatar. I mean, the fact that you've got sort of, you know, the former heads of Hamas who actually live there. And, you know, there's always barriers that are put up all the time, every time they're trying to come to some sort of arrangement. You know, we've still got 50 hostages. We think 2/3 of them are probably dead. You know, who keeps dead bodies in underground tunnels?
Absolutely.
You know, if they'd have allowed or never taken hostages, which is a war crime, on October the 7th, or at least released these hostages well before now, we'd have been having a different conversation. And that decision has been left in the hands of Hamas and the terrorist organisations involved in this, including the IRGC in Iran, who've pulled the strings all this time. So, no, good for President Trump. He puts his money where his mouth is. You don't have to agree with it. But I think they're at least trying to make some good inroads to get to some sort of conclusion on this.
Well, President Macron, he has just been addressing Parliament, as you probably just saw in the bulletins. And I was going to play a clip, but I confess I'm a bit bored of Macron already. We're going to have 3 days of President Macron, ladies and gents. But anyway, the point he was making, he wants to broker a two-state solution, essentially, in the Middle East. And he was basically saying that is, until that happens, really, you can't really progress and conclude matters. Would you support that?
No. I mean, he also wants to recognise a Palestinian state, and that, to me, is a reward for terrorism. If you're going to have some sort of solution at the end of the day, you cannot have a small country like Israel living next door to a bunch of psychopaths that they know are going to cross the border and attack them, you know, at every opportunity. So I think that's for the birds, certainly at this moment in time.
I mean, I think, you know, I believe in a two-state solution. I think British governments of all parties believe in a two-state solution. I mean, clearly, at the moment, until things are clearer, you know, a two-state solution is impractical while Gaza is effectively in rubble. I mean, on Trump, I mean, I think the sort of low point for me, I mean, obviously, all this starts because of Hamas's appalling attacks on October the 7th. But the low point over recent months has been Trump saying that, you know, the population, we're going to turn the whole of Gaza into a resort. The population can go away for a year and a couple of years and come back. I mean, you know, it's just offensive nonsense. What we need is a long-term solution that actually means the people of Gaza aren't in the hands of Hamas, but nor are they being attacked by the Israelis.
Well, look, I'll tell you what we're not going to do on this programme tonight. We're not going to solve the crisis in the Middle East, but you will have strong opinions on it, I am absolutely sure. Get in touch, join the conversation in all the usual ways. Coming up after the break, let's return to matters in this country. Law and order. The justice system in this country is apparently on the verge of collapse. What do we do about it then? See you in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Things have turned a little cooler across Italy, and a brisk northerly breeze will keep that going in Rome. Some heavy rain recently in Croatia, that's clearing away. Small chance of a shower in Madeira, but the Canaries fine, dry and sunny, as is Portugal and most of southern Spain. There is the chance of 1 or 2 showers near Barcelona. It's fine and sunny across Greece and Turkey. Plenty of sunshine on offer here, turning dry now in Croatia, as I said. A chance of 1 or 2 showers later this week, though, in Rome. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hot and sunny weather is on the way for virtually all of us, but overnight it will be gloomy and damp in the northwest. Clear spells elsewhere, turning increasingly warm through the day on Wednesday as high pressure builds in. However, over the top of that high, we do have some weak weather fronts pushing into northwestern parts of the UK. That's been thickening up the cloud across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day. Those thicker clouds push into the north and west of England, as well as Wales overnight. Bringing some drizzle in places, particularly northwestern hills and coasts. A lot of hill fog and coastal mist around as we start off Wednesday here, but a mild start, cooler towards the southeast, but that's where we see the best of the sunshine first thing, and temperatures quickly rising. And in fact, it's blue skies for much of East Anglia, the south and southeast of England, some patchy cloud towards Devon and Cornwall, Somerset as well. West Wales, I think some thicker cloud over North and West Wales and some drizzle over the hills. But it's Western Scotland, Northern Ireland where we see the thickest cloud and some mist and murk, as well as outbreaks of rain and drizzle. The clouds tend to lift and break in many places during the morning. Skies turn brighter, but with the exception of Western Scotland, where it stays generally gloomy and damp throughout much of the day. Eastern Scotland faring well for sunny skies, likewise for England, Wales, Northern Ireland, skies brightening. Sunny spells and turning warmer. A warmer day than Tuesday, and it's going to turn hotter still as that high pressure increasingly dominates the weather. So we start off once again on Thursday with some low cloud and some drizzle for the north and west of Scotland, but it tends to fizzle away and push north through the day as that area of high pressure exerts its influence, and with increasing spells of sunshine during the rest of the week and into the weekend, we're going to see the heat build not just in the south but widely across the UK.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In East Riding of Yorkshire, repairs on the M62 westbound between junctions 37 and 36 have closed 2 lanes. The M57 southbound exit slip at Knowsley Junction 1 is shut for urgent roadworks. The M1 southbound in Leicestershire has 2 lanes closed between junctions 21 and 20. Essex commuters note, the M25 anti-clockwise exit slip at junction 26 is closed for emergency repairs. In Surrey, 3 lanes are closed between junctions 11 and 10. In Devon, the M5 southbound at junction 31 is partially closed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello there, I am Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes and Co. Alongside me until 7 o'clock, I've got Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer and former MEP, and Matt Lauser, the former Labour advisor. She threw me then as we was coming back from the break. I was literally just about to go live on air, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to the state dinner tonight." That's what I was doing, looking at her, going, "What, really?"
Now I'm waiting for my invitation.
I know, yeah, she's not on the list. I don't want to burst a bubble, but she isn't, ladies and gents. She's here with us. Instead, way much more interesting, I think, than that state dinner. I've got to say, not a lot of love coming through on the inbox from my viewers at home when it comes to Macron. Mark says, Michelle, I've been banging my head against the wall watching all this coverage of Macron talking to us about unity, whilst it feels like our borders have been invaded from his shores. It'll be interesting, he says, when Donald Trump has his state visit and all the protesters come out to show their feelings. I hear what you're saying. John says Macron has shown nothing but disdain for our great nation. What is he doing here? Simon says all this fawning over a French president that, let's face it, many of the French people don't even want. It's nauseating, he says. Philip says Starmer and Macron, we are doomed. Dee says, Michelle, Macron, all of this, we basically put fish above defence. It sickens me to watch all of this. Craig, can you see the theme that's coming through? Craig says, Michelle, we've given France millions and our fishing and we're getting absolutely nothing back. Lots of you are asking why we're giving France millions and millions of pounds. We're spending millions of pounds potentially on state visits. How much is this state visit going to cost? I don't know. And Bob, you made me laugh. You're saying one in, one out migration policy is the biggest load of, I have to beep your word and replace it with twaddle instead. You say it should be none in and all out. Well, there you go. And I can tell you now, there's a big divide among you guys at home about whether or not Donald Trump should receive the Nobel Peace Prize. But look, I want to talk to you about law and order in this country. I also want to talk to you as well about doctors potentially going on strike. I'll come to them later on. But for now, we know that the justice system in this country is broken. We're going to have the sentencing review revealed, the sentencing bill this week. What is going to be in it? I would like to see tough talk. I would like to see tougher sentences, more people in prisons, more prisons. That's what I would like. Instead, it seems we're going to have an increase in out-of-court resolutions. We're going to have a potential decrease in jury trials. And the idea that was previously floated about potential mandated chemical castration of paedophiles, which I love that idea, apparently that might not even happen either because we could open ourselves up to getting sued. Pick any of those strands you like, Jacqueline Foster.
Well, I think just on 2 points. I think not to have trials for what is technically low-level crime. I don't think that's a good deterrent, frankly. I think what we need to do is look at the whole structure of where you do have low-level crimes, and you do have countries where literally people are arrested, they're sort of banged up, they get representation, they're in a court, and they're basically making very quick decisions. And I'd also not agree with reducing jury trials either. I think that could be a slippery slope. On the point, I think, of castration, I might have to disagree with you, only for the point that you cannot force anybody to take chemicals, basically. Rape isn't really about sex. Rape is generally about power. Unfortunately, of course, sex is very obviously it's part of all of that. So I think this is another one of those sort of the government's come up with this great wheeze. This is how we're going to deter people doing it, and it won't actually. And you know, it's like gesture politics. There's always a title somewhere, and the problem is most of the titles are empty gestures, and they won't actually solve anything. But rapists are about power. They will often damage people. They will murder people. And these people actually, they don't need any. They need a speedy resolution to be in jail, frankly, for the rest of their lives.
There must be a way, and in fact, I'm sure there's a way to do chemical castration. By the way, if I could get away with physical castration, I most certainly would. Don't you worry about that. But I do appreciate people won't get that over the line. But you can, I am sure, do chemical castration by way of implants or whatever. And I absolutely would be forcing people, actually. And one of the things that it caught, pricked my eyes and ears up when I read and listened to this earlier on. I thought it was pretty disgusting, actually, and very insightful, because this chemical castration has been trialled already in prison settings. And when I was actually reading some of the feedback, a consultant forensic psychiatrist, who is a clinical lead, basically, for one of these trials, I found this really interesting, Matt. She said, it's already a struggle to find clinicians willing to administer these drugs. She says it's not necessarily a popular area of work. And then she's basically saying if we expand this, we're going to struggle basically to find clinicians to administer this medication. I can't understand that. I would imagine that clinicians should be queuing around the block to try and protect children.
I think it's not. I mean, yes, I think I agree with you in terms of the outcome. I think it's the fact that if your working life is, you know, if you could be doing general medicine, you could be, you know, helping nice and innocent, ordinary people versus working in the criminal justice system, which is, you know, think about where you're going to work and how it is. I'm guessing that's where she's coming from. But obviously the outcome, you'd think people would be able to put, you know, at least enough people to staff up what they need would be able to put the outcome over the thing, because obviously our prisons are staffed by lots of hard-working prison staff as well. So, I mean, that was disappointing. I mean, I think the government sort of got ahead of itself by sort of indicating that they were going to roll this out before they'd actually thought it through. What the difference is that I think the government is right to make this as an option, because quite a lot of sex offenders, Jack is absolutely right about rape, but I think quite a lot of these are child sex offenders, and so it's about kind of, it's basically, it's not actually chemical castration. What it is it's basically libido suppressant drugs to try and make them have fewer sexual urges. And so quite a few people volunteer for that, and I think that there should certainly be the volunteer access to that. The problem is that because it's people taking a tablet, how do you force people taking a tablet once they're out of a prison setting? How do you monitor it so it becomes impractical, which is what some of the medics are saying?
Well, explore things like implants and stuff like that. There must be... Look, where there is a will, there is a way. And also, when you're looking at this story, ladies and gents, they're starting talking about these paedophiles, the potential for them to self-harm. If you do this, I mean, I honestly, I think I'm in a parallel universe. Why are we sitting here worrying about paedophiles self-harming and that potentially taking some form of precedent over protecting children? Absolutely strange scenario.
I don't think that it's going to stop them. It may be a suppression. It will be difficult, as Matthew said, once they're outside of prison. I think whatever drugs anybody takes, if they want to rape somebody or they will do it.
Disgusting individuals. Look, let me ask you this as well. In New York, people will be familiar with broken windows theory. What they did is clamp down hard and fast on small matters of crime to try and stop them escalating. That's the direction of travel many people at home will want to see this country go in. But it feels like we're going the opposite direction when we're trying to look at, right, we'll bring you out of prison early, we'll try and figure all this stuff out outside of court, we'll try and speed up trials without juries and all the rest of it. Are we going in the right direction travel?
No. I just don't think we are. I don't think the deterrents are good enough. I think there are far too many people on early release with really serious criminals, frankly. They seem to spend most of the time trying to chase somebody who's been on Twitter. And I think the messages that actually come out from the judicial system and some of the sentencing that's come out on certain crimes has really been horrendous, frankly.
But then
people have lost confidence.
Yeah, but one of the reasons they've lost confidence, Jacqueline, is that the Conservatives were supposed to be the party of law and order. So if that was what you was into, you probably would have leaned towards the Tories. But when you look at things like prison places created and all the rest of it, the Tories were terrible.
Yeah,
what do you say?
Yeah. You know, I can't rewrite. I'm a Tory. I can't sort of rewrite.
No, but I'm asking you your view on that. Do you look back and think that your party got it right, got it wrong? When you talk about the loss of confidence, like, what's your thought on that?
I think there was I think there's a sort of an escalation generally over that across politics, including the Tories. I mean, there were some good things that were sort of put in place. I think COVID actually knocked a lot of things off kilter to a certain degree. When we look at the backlog now for the courts, the reason the courts, the 77,000 people waiting to go through the court system is because we closed down the country for 2 years. Because before 2019, actually it was really rather low and it was well managed. So the thing is, and of course then what they're doing, the reaction to all of that then is, well, we'll have to let them out or not put them in, and that actually isn't the answer.
It clearly can't carry on in the situation is at the moment. I mean, one thing, for example, is, and I wonder if anybody who's messaging in with strong views on this, there's one of the big issues is there's a massive shortage of magistrates. So in terms of fast processing in the magistrates' courts, you know, people do something on a Friday night, you think they'd be up before the beak, as they used to say, the following morning. There aren't enough magistrates up and down the country now. It's, you know, it's a thankless but important task. But people need to think about, actually, should I go online and apply to be a magistrate? Because I think it's over 3,000 magistrates that we're short across the country.
But there's also the point when you're even at that level, where actually magistrates have quite a lot of power, and too many people and they're repeat offenders on this sort of technically low level, which isn't low level because it affects everybody's lives, are given a smack on the wrist and told to go away, and they really should actually be in the proper process.
You get the revolving door.
There's a revolving door.
What do you think to this, ladies and gents? Do you share my concerns? Do you feel that we're perhaps going in the wrong direction when it comes to our approach to tackling crime and criminals? Look, I'll tell you something else that affects all of our lives, the NHS. I want to show you what the BMA tweeted out today in relation to strikes, so stay tuned. And I want to ask you, would you support doctors if indeed they went on strike, again, over pay?
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The 12th, a day to celebrate history, community and family here in Northern Ireland. Join me, Arlene Foster.
And me, Dougie Beattie, as we bring you live coverage of the July 12th celebrations.
Right across the United Kingdom. It's all happening here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Jubes and Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Matthew Laza. Alongside me now, look, do you use the NHS? Do your loved ones use the NHS? Let me ask you a simple question then. Of course, waiting lists are going through the roof at this moment in time. We know, of course, we had so many strikes by junior doctors, now called resident doctors. I've got a simple question for you. Would you support these doctors going out on strike again because of pay? Because what the BMA have done now is they have canvassed, balloted their members and asked them would they be prepared to look at strike action again over the issue of pay. I want to just show you the tweets that the BMA actually put up announcing the reaction to this. And if you're watching on the radio, sorry, if you're listening on the radio, you're not watching the screen, you can't see it. They basically typed the words yes, 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 yes in massive capital letters on the screen. And we need to be clear, ladies and gents, that these doctors, they've had multiple pay rises as it happens. They've been offered 5.4% this year. They've had over 20% over the last couple of years. And this is all about them essentially wanting a 29% rise to do pay restoration back to 2008 levels. What do you think to this at home? Let's listen to our Health Secretary, Wes Streeting.
So I met with the resident doctors today to urge them, even at this late stage, to work with a government that wants to work with them. We can't go further on pay this year, not least because they had the highest pay rise of the entire public sector. But we do want to work with them to improve the lives of resident doctors today, to improve their opportunities for career progression in the future. And that's why I hope that they won't go ahead with this strike action.
Jacqueline Foster, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Wes Streeting has been absolutely outflanked. And the fact when they did give pay rises when they first came in to the doctors, they clearly didn't do a deal. I mean, God knows. I mean, I was a trade union negotiator for 13 years. And if I'd have gone into the employer and said, by the way, we fancy a pay rise of 29%, and not long ago, you know, over 3 years, we'd had 27%. I mean, they just think you were ridiculous. The problem with this once, you know, very, very respected organisation called the BMA that apparently represents doctors. I mean, they're like a bunch of students. The stuff, I mean, as you've just shown, yes, yes, yes. What about the people who've been waiting 2 years for an operation? You know, the public are paying into a service. They're on very good pay packages, these doctors. They're on gold-plated pensions, which is fine by me. And what they need to do is focus on the patients for a change and just get back to work.
Shall I play you, actually, some of the BMA? Look at their thoughts.
We know it hasn't been easy.
We know the pressures you're under at work.
The training bottlenecks and job uncertainty.
The not knowing where your next placement might be.
The sheer cost of living and making ends meet on a resident doctor's salary.
If we have to take strike action, we'll be sending the strongest possible message to government that it's not OK to undervalue us.
It's not OK to expect doctors to start their careers earning a fifth less than they did in 2008.
Matthew Laza, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that they had a good whack. I think the government was right to give them the pay rise it did when it came in, right to get the strike sorted. But it did make clear to them at the time that this was not, that their crazy demands were not all going to be given into. As Wes said in the clip, resident doctors, as we must now call them, have had the largest pay rise in the public sector. They need to take that, bank it, as it were, as a victory, work with the government if there are reforms to how the system works, to how they progress up the career ladder. I'm sure there are always things that can be done better in the NHS. It mustn't be absolutely set in stone, but they risk undermining the service that they claim to care so much about, because the public will simply not put up with another. There were 1.5 million appointments lost during the last strike. The public will not put up with that. The government has said it's going to put £29 billion extra into the NHS. That's a lot of money. And in return for that, the NHS has got to deliver. A strike will not help it deliver, and therefore it undermines the NHS, which I'm sure they're passionate about. I'm sure at their conferences they tell you how much they love the NHS. If they love the NHS, they've had a fair settlement, they need to get back to it. They need to stay in work and not have another walkout.
Well, look, this was a 6-week ballot, so let's just put some meat on the bones here. So they had a 55% turnout on this ballot. I think it's quite low, actually. Of that 55%, 90% of them, there or thereabouts, voted yes. So in total, you've probably got about just under 50%, if you like, of these resident doctors that are supporting these calls for this strike action. That means that now they've got a fresh mandate, get this, until January 2026. And you say, actually, you don't think the British public will put up with it. What choice have they got? If the doctors are going to down tools, what choice have they got?
I mean, you know, it's a bit, yeah, it's not like a train strike where it may be inconvenient, but you know, a lot of people can drive rather than get the train or that sort of thing. I think it's about the public anger. I think the NHS is, and as Wes Streeting has said this itself, it's got to change or it will die. And I think, you know, I massively believe in the principles of the NHS, but in return for investment, the NHS has got to deliver. And if the doctors become the impediment to that, then they're imperiling the future of the NHS. Maybe we will see parties saying that, I mean, they think there's got to be more radical change.
But these doctors truly believe that they are financially undervalued. They feel that they are not respected by the NHS, that they have not been for a very long time, and they would argue that they just want to be valued, respected and paid what they are worth.
Well, I think this is absolute nonsense. I mean, when they train to be a doctor, in any event, the taxpayer assists for training, which is fine. Nobody's got a problem with that. You know what the job is. You know what your contract of employment is. And it's not as though that they don't get general pay rises and anyway, and they're going up the ranking and earning more money. They have very good pension schemes, and they work in social hours, and most of the population work in social hours. I did it myself and have done it for most of my life. And, you know, at the end of the day, they need to start thinking about the patients, because I'm sick of listening to about how they feel when you've got thousands and thousands of patients and thousands of people in this country who are taxpayers who are actually waiting for treatment, waiting to get a GP appointment, waiting to get an operation which is debilitating, so they can't get back to work. So there are all of these things too.
They've been downgraded over basically 15 years.
You don't work out a pay increase because of the cost of living. 15 years.
But the issue over 15 years is we've seen huge change in pensions. Most people in the private sector's pensions have got worse. They're sort of broadly stayed the same. They need to bank that as a win.
Oh, what a pickle, ladies and gents. But you can bet your bottom dollar that those people that will be, of course, impacted are all of you that are sitting. You'll be watching this in aches and in pains. You'll be on that waiting list. I dread to think how long some of you will have been on that waiting list. You'll be sitting there going, Michelle, I can't afford to go private. I'm in absolute agony. I literally just want to be seen by the NHS that I pay into. Would you support those junior doctors, resident doctors? I've got to tell you, in essence, in the inbox, there's an overwhelming sense, actually, that you think that these doctors seem to be pushing it a little bit too far. I've got to tell you, just before the previous break, we were discussing chemical castration of paedophiles. One of my viewers has got in touch, and I quote, Michelle, it's easy to demonise paedophiles, but one needs to remember that most adults who abuse children were themselves abused by adults as children. I won't give your name, and I will just say this to you. Yes, what you say is absolutely right. The cycle of abuse does indeed continue, and I find it absolutely tragic that any child in society is harmed in any way, particularly in that manner. It's absolutely tragic, and if you are a victim of that, then I wish you all the help in the world to try and repair and recover and move forward. Notwithstanding that, once people become adults, you know right from wrong. And using previous bad experiences, using previous abuse as a reason to go on to harm other children, I have no truck with that, I'm afraid. I have no sympathy with that, I am afraid. It is absolutely categorically wrong to hurt children in any way, shape or form, particularly in a sexual way. If you are someone who agrees with that viewer and thinks that actually, you know, abuse creates abuse, you need to get some help, because the people that are being harmed in this way are children. And yes, you may have been a child yourself once, but once you become an adult, you know it's wrong. You absolutely know it's wrong. I hope that this government does indeed follow through, has a spine on this issue and does indeed mandate chemical castration. But of course, for anyone that suffered in their childhood, my heart, of course, does go out to you. But for now, that's all I've got time for, ladies and gents. Thank you for your company. Matt Laza, thank you for yours. And Jacqueline Foster, she's the best dressed woman I think we've got on GB News. I salute you.
The two of you.
Have a nice night, everyone. Have a nice night, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cozy